Close your eyes for a moment and imagine everything you've ever known. Your science, your logic, your knowledge, standing face to face with something beyond comprehension. Imagine discovering that the answers you've been chasing your whole life were written centuries before the first telescope ever looked at the stars. We live in a world that worships intelligence but forgets the one who gave it. We explore the skies, dive into oceans, decode DNA, and build machines that think. Yet the more we discover, the more we realize how little we truly know. Because every law of physics, every pattern in biology, every orbit in the cosmos whispers the same truth. There is order, there is meaning, there is a creator. This is not just a story of faith. It's a revelation that science itself is slowly catching up to. And when you see what scientists are discovering today and how it connects to what was revealed in the Quran over 1400 years ago, it will shake the way you see reality. Tai forever. A Burke, so don't blink. He Burke, don't scroll away. A Burke, yeah, because in the next few minutes you will witness how the word of God and the discoveries of man collide. Aber not to contradict, but to confirm each other. By the end of this speech, you won't just believe in God. Burhi, you'll understand why he must come first and why everything else comes later. Burhi, the Quran is not against science. It is ahead of it. When you study the verses of the Quran with an open mind and sincere heart, you begin to see a pattern that cannot be denied. It is not a book of science, but it contains signs that lead to the truth. 1400 years ago, in a desert where there were no observatories, no microscopes, no laboratories, and no scientific research institutions, a man who could not read or write uttered words that continue to shake the foundations of human understanding even today. Those words spoke of creation, the cosmos, the seas, the mountains, and even the human being in ways that modern science is only begin. Ning to discover. Bro, when the Quran said that the universe was created from a single entity that later expanded, humanity did not even have the vocabulary to describe such a phenomenon. Centuries later, when scientists spoke of the Big Bang and the expanding universe, they echoed what had already been revealed. The Quran said, "Do not the disbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were a joined entity and we separated them? And we are expanding the heavens." It wasn't poetry. It was a reality wrapped in revelation. The Quran didn't just hint at it. It declared it boldly. Long before telescopes were pointed toward the stars, it spoke of the barrier between two bodies of water, one sweet and one salty, that do not mix completely. When explorers later discovered the phenomenon of the thermocline and halocline, where seas meet but their waters remain distinct, they realized what the Quran had declared. He has let free the two bodies of flowing water meeting together. Between them is a barrier which they do not transgress. Who could have known this in the 7th century? It was not possible for a desert traveler to describe oceanic properties with such accuracy, yet it was there, preserved in the words of God. When the Quran described the human embryo, it used terms that astonished modern embryologists. It said that the embryo is formed as a leech-like substance clinging to the wall of the womb. Only with the invention of the microscope did scientists confirm that the early embryo truly resembles a leech in both shape and behavior. It clings and draws nourishment from its host. This detail is not a coincidence. It is revelation, timeless and divine. Even when the Quran spoke of mountains, it said that they act like pegs stabilizing the earth's crust. The concept of isostasy, the geological explanation of how mountains have deep roots that balance the earth's surface, came many centuries later. Yet the Quran described it as if the author of creation himself were eiling his design. The Quran didn't need human confirmation, but when knowledge advanced, it became a mirror reflecting its truth. Some people think that the Quran and science are in conflict, but that idea is born from misunderstanding both. The Quran is not trying to replace science. It is revealing the limits of human knowledge. It invites reflection, observation, and research. It does not ask blind submission, but conscious recognition. It asks the human mind to think, but to think humbly, because the knowledge of the Creator surrounds everything. When a believer studies science, he sees the fingerprints of God in every atom and every galaxy. When a disbeliever studies the same science, he sees data but misses the design. Putting God first means understanding that human knowledge, no matter how vast, is always a small part of His infinite wisdom. Science is the discovery of His laws, not a challenge to His authority. Every equation, every discovery, every breakthrough in medicine or physics is another layer of His mercy revealed to humanity. The Quran says, "We shall show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that this is the truth." This verse is not a statement of limitation. It is a prophecy. A promise that as time goes on, discoveries will continue to affirm what was revealed centuries ago. Even in cosmology, scientists found that everything in the universe moves in an orbit, from the planets to the stars to the very electrons revolving around nuclei. The Quran said, "And the sun runs its course for a term appointed. That is the decree of the mighty, the knowing. And the moon we have determined for it phases until it returns like the old date stalk." Everything moves, everything rotates, everything submits to a divine command. It's a cosmic rhythm that science can measure but not explain. When we say that the Quran is ahead of science, it does not mean it is a science textbook. It means that science is only catchy, catching up to what Revelation already proclaimed. Human beings are walking through a universe filled with divine signs, and the Quran is the key that helps them read those signs correctly. Without it, discoveries can lead to arrogance. With it, discoveries lead to humility and worship. If you look closely at scientific progress, you will notice something profound. Every time science reaches a new level, it confirms not the absence of God, but His presence. The deeper scientists dig into the atom, the more complex and ordered it becomes. The farther astronomers look into the cosmos, the more fine-tuned and intentional the universe appears. From the double helix design of DNA to the perfect tilt of the earth that sustains life, everything screams of precision. The Quran told humanity to reflect on these things, not to boast of intelligence, but to recognize intelligence behind the design. The message of revelation and the method of science are not enemies. They are reflections of the same truth. Viewed from two sides, the Quran gives meaning, science gives measurement. The Quran gives purpose, science gives process. When both are placed together under the light of faith, they elevate human understanding beyond imagination. When we say God first, everything else later, it doesn't mean neglecting reason or rejecting scientific knowledge. It means acknowledging that all knowledge originates from Him. It means understanding that the laws of physics, chemistry, and biology are not random. They are written by the same hand that wrote Revelation. When a believer discovers something new, he should not say, "I found it." He should say, "He allowed me to see it." The Quran's timeless nature is one of its greatest miracles. No matter how advanced humanity becomes, the book continues to unfold deeper meanings. Every generation finds something new within its words. The same verse that inspired a farmer 1,000 years ago can inspire a physicist today. The same verse that guided a sheep furred in the desert can guide an astronaut in space. That's because truth does not age. It only becomes clearer as time passes. Science is a gift, but revelation is guidance. When you separate the two, you create confusion. When you unite them under the light of faith, you see the harmony of creation. The Quran doesn't fear scientific discovery, it invites it. It challenges humanity to look deeper, to reflect more, to observe the skies and the earth, and to find the Creator through His creation. This is why the Quran repeats, will they not reflect? Will they not look? Will they not think? It's not just poetry. It's a divine call to awakening. Every advancement of science brings man closer to acknowledging the greatness of God, whether he admits it or not. The discoveries of the Quran were not meant to impress scientists, but to awaken souls. When you put God first, every piece of knowledge falls into its rightful place. When you remove God, knowledge becomes a tool of pride instead of enlightenment. The Quran has been leading, science has been following, and humanity is still learning to catch up. Faith gives meaning to discovery, not the other way around. Science can tell you how something works, but it can never tell you why it exists. The Quran teaches that the purpose of knowledge is not to glorify human intelligence, but to recognize divine wisdom. Every discovery that science makes about the universe is another layer of evidence pointing toward a creator who designed everything with precision, purpose, and balance. When man forgets this connection and tries to replace God with his own intellect, knowledge becomes empty. It becomes a collection of data without direction, facts without faith, progress without peace. When a scientist studies DNA, he sees strands of code that determine life. Each molecule knows exactly what to do, when to divide, how to repair itself, and how to pass on information. It's a level of organization that defies randomness, the Quran said. Long before microscopes were invented, that God created man in perfect proportion and fashioned him from a drop of fluid. It explained that in that tiny drop lies the potential for life, guided by divine command. The scientists might describe it as genetics, but the believer sees it as a sign, a message that within the smallest design lies infinite wisdom. Faith gives meaning to what science observes. When astronomers look into the night sky and witness billions of galaxies spinning in harmony, they calculate distances, speeds, and gravitational forces. They measure the brilliance of stars, the birth of nebulas, and the death of supernovas. But what they cannot measure is the purpose behind it all. The Quran calls these the signs in the horizons, signs meant to remind mankind that the universe is not chaos. It's order, intentional, and precise. Faith turns an observation into realization. It transforms the cold data of space into the warm reflection of divine artistry. Without faith, a star is just a ball of gas. With faith, it becomes a verse of the Creator's glory shining in the dark. When oceanographers explore the deep sea, they find ecosystems thriving in complete darkness. Creatures that emit their own light, plants that feed on chemicals instead of sunlight, and life existing in conditions that seem impossible. Science records it as a wonder of adaptation, but the believer reads it as a sign that the one who gives life on land also gives life in the depths where no human eye can see. The Quran says, "Whatever is in the heavens and the earth glorifies Him." Faith reminds the heart that even the silence of the deep ocean praises the Creator. Science explains how they survive. Faith explains who allowed them to. Hebrew faith gives direction to knowledge. It keeps the human mind humble and the human heart grounded. The more a person learns about the laws of nature, the more he should be reminded of the lawmaker. When a physician studies how the heart beats, how blood flows, how the brain signals the body, he witnesses miracles that happen every second. A believer in that moment feels awe, not pride. He knows that behind each heartbeat is the will of God keeping it alive. When the Quran says, "It is He who gives life and causes death," it's not a metaphor. It's a reminder that every scientific observation has a divine origin. Hebrew, science without faith can lead to arrogance. Faith without understanding can lead to blindness. The Quran brings balance between the two. It encourages discovery, reflection, and reasoning. But it also reminds the seeker of truth that all knowledge ultimately belongs to God. The Quran never condemned questioning. It condemned denial after knowledge. The difference between the believer and the skeptic is not access to facts, but the interpretation of them. Both see the same world, but one sees purpose and the other sees coincidence. When a baby is born, the doctor measures the weight, the pulse, the breathing. Science can disagree. Be the process of birth in perfect detail, but it cannot explain the miracle of life entering a body, the soul, consciousness, love, mercy. None of these can be measured, yet they define human existence. Faith completes what science cannot touch. Faith says that the unseen is not unreal, it is simply beyond human perception. The Quran calls these realms the unseen and the seen, and both are part of creation. Science explores the seen. Faith connects to the unseen. Together they complete understanding. The Quran guides the believer to see that discovery is not about pride, but gratitude. When someone discovers a new cure, invents new technology, or explores new worlds, He has uncovered something God already placed there. Faith transforms discovery into worship. The moment of discovery becomes a moment of humility. Not I created, but He allowed me to see. That is the difference between worldly knowledge and divine understanding. The believer knows that every discovery is an inviter to draw nearer to the Creator, not a reason to feel independent of Him. Shibruki. Faith also protects science from moral corruption. Without faith, science can be used to destroy rather than heal. The same knowledge that produces medicine can produce weapons. The same intelligence that sends satellites to space can also pollute the earth. Faith gives conscience to discovery. It reminds humanity that power without purpose leads to chaos. The Quran teaches responsibility with knowledge. It says, do not corrupt the earth after it has been set in order. Knowledge is a trust, not a tool for destruction. When you place God first, discovery becomes a path to reflection, not domination. Faith reminds us that what we know is limited. No matter how advanced humanity becomes, the mysteries of existence will always exceed our grasp. The Quran says, you have been given of knowledge only a little. This is not an insult to human intelligence. It is a reminder of perspective. It humbles the human being and teaches him that true wisdom lies in recognizing the limits of his own understanding. Every discovery begins with curiosity, but faith turns curiosity into reverence. When a scientist witnesses the perfection of a cell, a believer feels the perfection of the one who designed it. When an astronaut sees the curve of the earth from space, a believer remembers the verse, and we made the earth spread out so that you may walk therein. Faith gives emotion to knowledge. It transforms knowledge into a bridge between mind and heart. Faith also gives peace in discovery. Many scientists reach a point where they understand the mechanics of the universe but feel lost about their own existence. Knowledge without faith can make a person aware of everything around him but ignorant of himself. The Quran says, they know what is apparent of this world, but they are heedless of the hereafter. Faith completes the picture. It connects the outer discovery of the universe with the inner discovery of soul. The believer doesn't just study creation, he studies himself as part of that creation, bound by purpose and guided by divine law. When scientists discovered the laws of motion, gravity, relativity, and quantum mechanics, they uncovered the consistency of the Creator's design. The Quran invites humanity to reflect on that consistency. It says, you will not see any flaw in the creation of the Most Merciful. Faith helps the believer see that behind every mathematical law is divine order. Even randomness follows rules that were created by one who is never random. Hebrew faith gives the human journey its direction. Without it, discoveries lead to more questions, but no peace. With it, discoveries become signs that strengthen the heart. The Quran turns the act of observation into an act of worship. To look at the stars, to study the human mind, to decode nature, all become ways to remember the Creator. Science and faith are not two separate paths. They are two halves of the same truth. One explains how creation operates. The other explains written. The Quran is not outdated. It is unfolding, timeless, waiting for each generation to see new reflections of its truth. When scientists marvel at the mysteries of the cosmos, when explorers find signs in the depths of the ocean, when the human heart beats with awe at the beauty of existence, all of it points in one direction, to the oneness of the Creator. Faith is the light that turns knowledge into wisdom, and wisdom into peace. So, as you walk away from this message, remember, the greatest discovery you can ever make is not in a lab, not through a telescope, not in a formula, but within your own heart, when you realize that everything begins and ends with God. When He is first, everything else falls into place. When He is forgotten, even knowledge loses its meaning. Keep seeking, keep reflecting, but never forget who allows you to see. May your path be filled with understanding, your knowledge guided by faith, and your heart always anchored in truth. May your curiosity lead you to clarity, your reflection lead you to humility, and your success lead you closer to the one who gave you the ability to succeed. Good luck, my friend. Keep your eyes open, your mind curious, and your heart connected to your Creator. Thank you for listening. And may peace, knowledge, and light always be with you.